We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast.
Boom! Headshot!
Hey, it's Clay. How you guys doing? Welcome to my League of Legends tutorial. This is going to be on last hitting. This is an extremely important skill that everybody in League of Legends needs to master. It's one of the most fundamental mechanics of your play that you need to understand. And it's a very simple concept. You simply last hit the minion in order to gain the gold. That's easy. But how do you actually do it? This comes from the perspective of somebody who's still a relatively new player, but I've spent a lot of time working on my last hitting, and I wanted to share with you guys some of the things that I have come to my understanding that are not explicitly clear and that aren't always talked about in guides. Basically, a lot of times in guides you'll just see, okay, run up and then make sure you last hit the minion, but they don't really explain a lot of the concepts in depth. So I really wanted to cover some of these things in a little bit more detail. Now, let's first talk about last hitting in general. Last hitting is extremely important for every champion, arguably except for supports. Now, supports are usually paired with an AD carry in the bottom lane. That's kind of the current metagame right now of professional League of Legends at least, and especially in ranked solo queue. That's probably going to hold true. And the support player is usually somebody who is not item dependent, meaning that they don't need a lot of gold in order to become powerful. They're more based on things like mana and their abilities and skills, things like that. But they can't really carry a game with just pure damage output, like somebody like an AD attack damage carry can do. So supports are usually asked to not last hit, but all of the other lanes and roles usually are going to want to last hit. Now, jungling is a little bit different because you don't really have minion waves to deal with, but if you're playing in any of the other lanes as kind of the bruiser, fighter, top lane, the AP carry mid lane, or the AD carry bottom lane, this is going to be extremely important for you. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the first thing that I wanted to cover is positioning. Now, I'm going to be playing as Graves in this game. He's an AD carry. I'm going to play in the bottom lane. And I want to first talk about good positioning and where your player should be located, the sweet spot, so you will, for last hitting. Okay, so I'm going to pause the clip here and just take a look at where my character is at. You can see I'm actually on the enemy side of the river. I'm almost past the edge of the brush, and there's kind of this entranceway on the top where you start to get into the jungle. We're getting close to the tower. Now, this is not the ideal place to last hit, especially early game. I'm only level 5. And so unless kind of my team strategy is to really try to push a tower aggressively early on, it's not advisable that you go this far up to last hit. There's a couple of reasons why this is so. And this seems counterintuitive because, when you watch beginner's guides to League of Legends, they always say you want to push towers so you can get to the enemy base and finally destroy it. Well, it's not always good to try and be aggressive and push as hard as you can right away. And that's simply because when you're this far down in lane, it really opens you up to get ganked. Now, a lot of times junglers, when they come for a gank, they will come up through the river. And as you can see, with just the positioning where my character is at, the jungler would have, look at the trail of minions behind me. The jungler could come all the way up from that very rear cannon minion. He could sneak up behind me all the way there, and then he would have all that distance. If Olaf charges me and then the jungler charges me from behind, I'm totally screwed. And I'm in a really bad position here. Now, thankfully, I did not get ganked, but this would have been a perfect opportunity for a jungler to come and gank me. So you definitely do not want to be this far forward when you're last hitting. It just opens you up to a lot more trouble than you really want to put yourself in. Now, let's go ahead and talk about how specifically you go ahead and do this. Now, the easiest way to get yourself into trouble is to simply auto-attack every minion, and that's the wrong way to do it. When you auto-attack every minion, you clear the wave faster, and you allow your minions to stay alive while their minions die. And when you do that, the lane gets pushed, and when the lane gets pushed, you have to come up this far in order to get your last hit. So what you want to do is stand still and wait for the minions to battle each other, and then simply come in and get the last hit before one of the minions is about to die. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get a clip up here to really show this. Okay, so in this clip you can see I'm in a much better position. This is at the very beginning of the game, and I'm just in a better place. You can see I'm between my tower and the jungle, so there's really only one place by which a ganker could come, and even then I've got a good place to retreat. I'm so close to my tower that I really don't have a long ways to go. Just staying in between this area where there's this first set of brush and that wall to the left, kind of before I get to the edge of the jungle, or the edge of the river, is where you really want to be. Now, if you look at my character, you can see I'm not doing anything, and then I wait, and then I attack. That's exactly what you want to do. I actually missed that second one, but I'm standing there, I'm hitting the S key, and then I'm attacking right at the very end when the minion is about to die. That's really, really important. Let's go ahead and look at that one more time. So there's a couple of ways that you can approach this. A lot of the pro players like to constantly right-click back and forth so that they're kind of moving and dodging. I like to hit the S key, which stands for stop. If you can see, when these minions come up, and the enemy minions are there, instead of just standing and auto-attacking, you hit the S key, or you are constantly right-clicking, so you're moving back and forth. But the point is that you're not attacking. So right now, I just stopped, I hit the S key, I'm sitting and waiting, I'm watching the minions. Let's go ahead and zoom up here on exactly what I'm looking at to really, really hone in on what you want to be watching while you're doing this. So my eyes are really focused on the health bars of the minions. That's extremely important. It's really the only detail that matters. You want to make sure that you're intently watching those health bars, and then when they get low, it's important to kind of have a basic understanding and a gauge for your character and for what they can do in terms of damage and in terms of what they can do, how much damage you can put out with one hit. It's really important to know and have an understanding of that, so that you can time it and gauge it correctly. It's also important to have a basic understanding of your character's attack animation. Certain attack animations take longer, or they're more clunky, or different characters have different ranges, so if you're not quite in range, you might have to run forward a little bit. All these things take practice and understanding. That's why it's probably best to really get one champion, one type of champion, whether it's melee or range, that you can kind of get comfortable with, because it does take some practice and some getting used to. But basically at this point, it's all about timing. You're keeping your eyes on those health bars of those minions, and you're waiting for them to get low. And you can watch the the attacks of your own minions. You can even see the little blue flashes of light coming from the magic minions in the back. That's the damage that they're doing. So you kind of want to time your attack in between those bursts of damage from your minions. But all this to say is that really it all comes down to timing. You want to really make sure that you're timing it correctly when you right-click on that minion, so you can make sure you get that last hit in. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is using your skills to really ensure that you're getting every last hit. There are instances where it seems like maybe two minions are going to die at the same time, or where it's just difficult to tell because there's a lot of minions on your side and there's only maybe one over there, or maybe one of your teammates is auto-attacking. There's a lot of variables that come into play, and it's not always easy to just auto-attack and time it all out perfectly. And one thing you can do is use your abilities and spells to really guarantee that you get these last hits. And a neat trick for certain abilities is that it will actually reset your attack timer. So I'm thinking about like Ezreal's Q, or Graves' Q, or Ashe's W. These are kind of like, some of them are cone, like Graves and Ashe, it's kind of fires out in a cone. And Ezreal's is more of just a one-shot nuke. But these type of attacks, what they do is, if you time it correctly, you can actually auto-attack, then hit Q, and then auto-attack again immediately afterwards, because that's your special ability will actually reset your attack timer on your auto-attack. So you can use that if you think that a minion is getting low, you can auto-attack and then quick hit Q to really guarantee that you finish it off. It just gives you a little bit more breathing room. It gives you a little bit more damage, so you don't have to be quite so precise. Because one thing you'll notice is that as you get later into game and you get more items, it's a lot easier to last hit because you have more damage, so you have more forgiveness in terms of timing. So you can use your abilities to really supplement this and make the process a little bit easier. Just one thing to keep in mind, though, is that this does cost mana, and some of them have longer cooldowns. So ideally, a shot that is maybe in a cone or has a small area of effect, those are really nice for hitting multiple minions that are both low at the same time. but also abilities that have low mana cost or have quick cooldowns. Those are ideal for this type of a situation. Because really, in the end, you want to gain your advantage through gold, and you want to really make sure you're getting these last hits, so every last hit that you can get really counts, and it's definitely worth it to use your mana on these abilities. Now, I think that the biggest thing that makes last hitting difficult is when you have to deal with enemy champions in lane, because a lot of times it's not just so easy where you're just standing there all by yourself, you got these nice waves of minions, and you can just perfectly last hit. I mean, that's ideal, but that rarely happens. So in this instance, you can see I've got two champions here. Hecarim and I are kind of pushed back to our own turret, and you can see that the turret is actually getting a lot of the kills, so that's not good. They kind of zoned us out a little bit. But you can see here how we take the brush, and if you look here, you can see that my two enemies are actually pushed back further away from the wave, but now we're pushed back. So it's kind of this tug of war. And so, this is where you take into account certain abilities of champions that have strong poke. The ability to kind of push your enemies back while you balance last hitting at the same time. Both of those is a really important skill to learn. And as you can see, I'm trying to... So at this moment, there's no minions that are low, so I'm spending my time really focusing on my enemies, trying to... Almost got to kill there. But now I'm going to retreat back and focus on these last hitting. So now that I've pushed my enemies away, I can feel free to last hit. And actually, my teammate gets a lot of those last hits, but... Really, the focal point here is that you have to try and balance it. You have to try to balance, poking at the enemies at the same time. You don't want to give up on last hitting. You want to do both. You want to try and balance both. So when you feel like the minions are strong and there are none that are near death, that's a really good time to poke. But when you feel like the minions are very weak, and then you really want to make sure that your attention is on them, that your attention is not so much on the enemies, but on the minions. So your general strategy is to push back the enemies so that they cannot farm through the various means of poke, using your abilities, usually maybe your auto attacks, so that you can get in there and last hit. It's kind of a tug of war, and definitely certain champions have strengths and weaknesses in this regard. Range is really helpful in this regard. And it's important to keep this in mind, and it's definitely something that's going to take practice. You're going to have to learn your specific champion. You're going to have to learn his abilities and what instances he really can shine. But it's an important thing to keep in mind that you want to try to push back your enemies so that you have more room to farm. And this is definitely something where a good support can come into play. A good support that has strong crowd control can really, really be beneficial. Just working with your teammate is really, really huge. Because again, this is really important. It's a really important skill to learn. So just try to invest in it. So last thing I want to say is to set benchmarks for yourself. It's really important to have an understanding of what you want to be shooting for. And use numbers. Use your final score. Be the leader on your team. Last hit everybody else on the other team by 50. Come up with little goals. Come up with numbers. If you've got a 40-minute game, say you want to reach 200 CS, or every game is a little bit different, but try to use numbers. This is the end of the game, and I'm starting to get really strong. I get a ton of kills here at the end just because I'm doing so much damage. And that was because I got a lot of gold, and that was because I had a lot of last hits. It's really as simple as that. It's a really, really effective, really powerful way to become really, really strong and powerful in the end game. And really overall, last hitting it's just one of the basics. It's one of the absolute building blocks of League of Legends, of becoming a really successful player. It's something that everybody has to master. So I hope that you guys found this helpful. This game was a lot of fun. It was a fun guide putting together. I hope that some of these tips help break it down a little bit more in depth and in detail for some of you newer players. I know that I have not been playing for too long, but I'm still learning. But last hitting is definitely something that I'm having a lot more success with and really enjoying as I clean up Olaf here. We can take a look. You can see that I had 218 CS. The next closest on the other team was 165. So feeling good about those numbers. Use those numbers to your advantage. Be hard on yourself. Really try to shoot to improve your CS every game. But I hope that you found this helpful. If so, please leave a comment and give it a thumbs up. maybe even consider giving it a favorite. I really appreciate your guys' support. Feel free to subscribe for some more videos. I'll be posting more League of Legends, more general gaming content on my channel as time goes on. But I hope that you guys found this informative or helpful, and I hope you have a great day. I'll see you soon.